Good evening, everyone. My name is Bardy, and I'm a student of the Sustainable and Renewable Energy Engineering Power Generation and Conversion Program here at Carleton. And upon meeting people for the first time and telling them this, usually maybe 7 times out of 10 I'm asked, why Carleton and why that program in particular. And beyond the truth of that being, it was the only school that I got into, and choosing to be a SRE student was basically a crapshoot. I've always known there to be something wrong with our planet, this, I guess, unbalance or unequilibrium. And I was curious as to whether or not this education would give me the ability to flip that situation and steer humanity away from where many say we'll be going if we don't. So I responded to an open invitation to give my 2 cents on sustainability. And the question I was posed with is, what does sustainability mean to me as a student? And I have to admit that when I first thought about giving the talk, I had no idea what to say, and I'm still not exactly sure how to put it into words. But I figured I could offer maybe a different perspective on it and help get the conversation going. So let me ask you, what does it say about our world that a public institution has made a 4-year commitment that we all know as an undergraduate degree that begins with probably one of the most elusive words that at least I can think of in the English language, that being sustainable. What is sustainability? What is sustainability? What does it mean to be sustainable? And why do we care? So you've probably heard this definition for sustainable development according to the 1987 Frontline Report of Our Common Future, where sustainable development is meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. This is a good definition. It definitely communicates the message, but it doesn't really tell us what to do Monday morning when we go to work. Does anybody in the crowd know what's significant about the 3rd week of August this year, 2014? Probably not. So on, it's estimated August of 19th of this year, we reached our annual Earth overshoot, which means that we as humans consumed more resources and produced more CO2 than we could possibly sequester or regenerate within a year. So right now as I speak, continuing on for the rest of the year, we are operating in an ecological deficit, and we rely on reducing natural stocks that we have and relying on renewable resources and kind of technology to sequester CO2 until next year when we start over. So this means that every 8 months we demand more renewable resources and CO2 sequestration than our planet can provide. And compare this to just the turn of the 21st century, the year 2000, when that date was in early October. So we've gone through meeting this, going into a deficit at 10 months, roughly 10 years ago, to 8 months right now. So with that number, at this point, in order not to go into a deficit, we would need 1.5 Earths, is the measure that they use, in terms of resources and CO2 capturability. And by the year 2025, when it's projected that we're going to have around 8 billion people and an additional 1 billion people that were previously not in what we call the middle class, or the ability to have the greatest ecological footprint, we'll need 3.5 Earths in order to meet that demand and live as comfortably as we do now. So we have a problem. Not only are we going to struggle to meet the needs of right now, so 7 billion people going on into the future, but as Asia develops and other countries become more advanced and like on the scale of our cities, they're going to start demanding as much as we do, and they're going to want what we want. So another definition that more caters to what I was talking about with this is sustainability is the capacity of our society to carry on indefinitely within the natural cycles of the biosphere. And again, this doesn't really tell us what to do Monday morning. However, this has led scientists to kind of, search, come together and define kind of 4 root sources of unsustainability. So I think, you can define sustainability, but it's the solution that we're having trouble with. And I think we need to start thinking about sustainability a little bit differently. And I think we need to think about it as less as a once-all solution and more of an iterative approach to solving this. So it's a quote from one of my favorite science fiction series, Dune. I think you can replace peace with sustainability because they're both kind of elusive ideas to have, where we know what we want, but it's kind of like how to get there. So peace demands solutions, but we never reach living solutions. We only work towards them. A fixed solution is by definition a dead solution. And just a little bit of context with Dune, they're kind of, it's a fictional novel. They're kind of dealing with the opposite of what we are in terms of Arrakis, which is the doomed planet that they're living on. They don't have any resources to begin with. Water is very scarce, and their leader, instead of being a politician, is a planetologist who says, okay, well, we want to develop this land, make it fertile, but then that has consequences of killing the spice worms and their resources. So Albert Einstein has an idea that might help us think about our approaches to sustainability a little bit better. And to quote him, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking that we use to create them. So what does this mean in terms of solving our sustainability issue, and why is it so hard for us to get together and strategically plan towards a sustainable society? Well, in general, with large groups of people, the common methodology of planning is forecasting. So using trends and data from the past and projecting them into the future in order to fix small problems. And this is okay if we're on the right trajectory of where we're going, but it's not so great for solving complex issues such as this one. So forecasting is kind of like driving, but only using your rear view mirror. And that's okay if you expect the next few kilometers to be an exact continuation of the previous few kilometers, but that's very dangerous, and that's kind of what we're doing now with a lot of our solutions and the way people see it. So we're not asking an important question of what if we want to change the direction that we're going in. And this should be the reason why sustainability should be the biggest innovation right now. So instead of starting from principles, starting from the present and using trends from the past to go to the future, I think we should be looking at the future. What do we want as a model? And I guess backcasting from these principles and measures of success that we find along the way. So chess is a prime example of this. Not a player myself, but I roughly know how the game works. Where both players have in mind an idea of what they want, the checkmate. They don't know in detail what the board is going to look like at the end of the game, but they do know that one of the two kings is going to be captured. And knowing this, they make all their decisions in order to achieve that checkmate, adjusting their strategy turn by turn in order, before they get the checkmate. So to plan strategically and successfully for a sustainable future, we need to backcast from the principles of sustainability and adjust our strategy along the way as new technologies and new approaches come out. This will help us agree on what those principles of sustainability should be. It'll prevent us from wasting time and resources on these ad hoc solutions. It'll also prevent argument on the details of what a sustainable society looks like in the end. So what is a sustainability checkmate? And what are the principles that we need to backcast from in order to achieve in order to play by the rules of the game? So there are only a few mechanisms that undermine our ability to survive and thrive on Earth. This translates into conditions that define sustainability from first principles, and they've been reviewed and refined over the last 20 years. So the first statement, I guess, is in a sustainable society, nature is not subject systematically increasing concentrations of substances extracted from the Earth's crust. This doesn't mean that we can't use things such as oil or other materials, but we have to not overdo it, I guess. We can't extract them such that they build up in nature. And I think from this principle, what I immediately think about is, the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, and recycle. But I think we've kind of forgotten about the other 2 of reduce and reuse in the advances of recycling. But depending on recycling and the process, generally all those efforts are thwarted by a lot of the energy that's required to recycle. And generally you can kind of think of recycling as an apology for a punch in the face. The second is, in a sustainable society, nature is not subject to systematically increasing concentrations of substances produced by society. So these are referring to substances that nature has never seen before, things that we produce. There has to be some type of measure to say, okay, well, what is okay? And they need to be released at a time that nature can cope with them. The third, in a sustainable society, nature is not subject to systematically increasing degradation by physical means. So this is referring to deforestation, fishing, everything in moderation, I suppose. And the fourth is, in a sustainable society, people are not subject to conditions that systematically undermine their capacity to meet their needs. 2 big examples of this that are happening. So rare metals that are in all of our cell phones, they're becoming increasingly scarce, and as a result of that, there's civil war in the Congo and other problems, as well as Apple's, I guess, lack of responsibility in terms of China and their manufacturing. I mean, there's people in China that are dying from benzene poisoning and leukemia as a result of their lack of standards and all of the cost of bringing us cheaper goods. So if society can achieve all of this, we will have met the minimum conditions for what sustainability is, or a sustainable society. And notice that all of these statements are phrased in the negative. So nature is not subject to, just like in the chess example, the king cannot escape from capture. They're also not prescriptive, so they're not like something, oh, here's the 12 things that you need to do to be sustainable or recover from alcoholism. And these are kind of limits or rules of the game, like I've said, that we need to follow in order to be sustainable. Now, how these conditions are brought together in order to achieve sustainability. that's kind of the next piece of the puzzle. That's about it. I mean, I think I heard this interesting argument that we should be burning all of the fossil fuels and all of those resources that we have now and get that money and invest it into alternative energy. And it's like, that's an idea, but that's kind of a race that I don't think we can afford. Other good news this week, the Rockefeller Group, which made a lot of money on oil in their lifetime, apparently they've divested $50 billion to go into alternative energy research. So that's all I have to say.